I don't support Hamas. Do you support Hamas?
No.
I don't support Israel. Do you support Israel?
Yes.
So, but that's what we're going to talk about. Now I'm going to
Stop!
ask you,
No.
It's very simple. You're here to support Israel.
No, but stop. But Hamas...
Why am I talking about someone we both disagree with?
Hamas has been the governing entity in Gaza for how many years? So yes, you do need to talk about Hamas because Hamas did what they did on October 7th.
And we've condemned it. We both
Hamas
condemn
has a
that.
history. Do you condemn? Yes. Do you condemn?
But you're not condemning Israeli war crimes. That's what I don't understand. You're trying to dodge it with what about Hamas. It's a very simple question. I can keep going. Let's play a clip here. Let's play a clip for you to watch. We got a clip of a grandmother. Here's a grandmother. Maybe you're not aware of this. This is a Palestinian grandmother in her 50s. She's holding a child, right, in her arm. He's got a white flag. She's shot in cold blood by an Israeli sniper who's...
Mehdi, I don't know what the hell that was.
So right off the bat, you can tell this isn't your standard back and forth political debate. This is Mehdi Hasan walking straight into a moral minefield and daring Joe Walsh to pick a side. And he does it the way only Mehdi can calm, razor-sharp and impossible to dodge. He asks the simplest question you could possibly ask in this moment. Do you condemn Hamas? Yes. Do you condemn Israel's war crimes? Silence. And that's when everything unravels. Because this is the heart of the hypocrisy that Mehdi's been pointing out for months, the selective outrage. The idea that empathy and accountability only apply when the victims belong to one side. When Hamas commits atrocities, the condemnation is instant and absolute and rightly so. But when Israel bombs refugee camps, when children and grandmothers waving white flags are shot dead, suddenly the tone changes to, it's complicated. Mehdi's saying, no, it's not complicated. Killing civilians is wrong, period. And when he plays that clip, that grandmother clutching a child, a literal white flag in her hand, gunned down, you can hear the shift in the room, because that's the moment reality breaks through the talking points. This isn't theory, it's human suffering. And the fact that people still can't bring themselves to condemn that equally says everything about the moral bankruptcy in this conversation. Joel Walsh tries to pivot, tries to hide behind but Hamas, but October 7th, and Mehdi doesn't let him. He keeps pressing because this isn't just about that one clip, it's about honesty, about being able to hold more than one truth at the same time. Hamas was wrong, and so is Israel's collective punishment of civilians. Both can be true, and refusing to say that out loud doesn't make you principled, it makes you complicit. This whole exchange perfectly captures the divide in today's politics. One side still thinks accountability is optional, the other's trying to drag the truth out into daylight, and that's why Mehdi Hasan stands out in every debate he walks into. He doesn't let anyone escape with moral shortcuts or patriotic excuses. So yeah, this wasn't just a debate, it was a test of consistency, empathy, and moral honesty. And once again, Mehdi Hasan passed it with flying colors while the other side couldn't even finish the question.
Why is what's happening in Ukraine a genocide, but not what's happening in Gaza when far more people have been killed and displaced in Gaza than in Ukraine?
I think it goes to motive and intent. I think Putin is trying to kill, and he has been for 3 years, Ukrainian civilians, kidnapping Ukrainian children. His intent is to kill civilians. You and I can arm wrestle. I don't think that's Israel's intent at all. I think Israel...
Even though Israeli government members have said far more genocidal stuff than Vladimir Putin has.
Completely. There are extreme members of Israel's government.
Not just extreme members, the president, the prime minister.
There always have been. But
the president and prime minister of the country
I know,
have said stuff that Vladimir Putin has not said about Ukraine. And yet Joe Walsh... If you said neither's a genocide, then I'd be fine. We'd move on. We'll talk about other things about Gaza. What I find fascinating is that you're happy to say genocide here, but if you say it there, you get mad. I don't get it.
Well, I don't get mad. I just think...
You do. I've seen some of your tweets.
I just think Putin's intent is to eliminate the Ukrainian people.
Based on what? His words?
Based on his actions.
Why is Israel's words and actions not the same?
Israel's actions and words, again, you can find some, but Israel's
Some. I could read you dozens. I'd be here all day if I started reading out all the genocidal statements from Israeli ministers.
I can find you a more history
Just a few days ago, the deputy speaker of the Israeli parliament and senior member of the Likud party, Netanyahu's party, said that the Palestinian civilians, his words, civilians, are scum, subhuman, and the women and children should be separated so that men can all be killed. That is stuff that Milosevic said. That is stuff I've not even heard Putin say. I don't hear Joe Walsh condemning that as genocidal.
Well, I would condemn that, and I will condemn that statement.
That's a genocidal statement.
That is a genocidal statement. I'm saying, Mehdi, that is a very minority view overall in Israel.
The guy I just quoted to you, the deputy speaker of the parliament said, "Let's kill all the adult men in Gaza."
And I'm
so
telling
you just put your hands in your ears.
No. I'm telling you that's a minority view. That's not the majority.
Okay, Benjamin Netanyahu said they are Amalek. What is Amalek, Joe? In the Bible, Amalek is kill everybody. Men, women, children, even the donkeys. That's what Netanyahu said.
Mehdi,
I didn't hear Putin say that.
Mehdi, again, I can find extreme things that members of Israel's government has said.
Yeah,
if Israel,
that counts as intent, and that's why they're at the ICJ, and that's why ICJ is investigating him. That's why some of Israel's leading Holocaust scholars have said it's a genocide.
If Israel wanted to exterminate the Palestinian people, they could have done it in 3 months.
That's the worst argument you've ever made in all the time I've made. I'll tell you
Correct.
why. Vladimir Putin could have erased everyone in Ukraine with a nuke.
No.
Yes, he could.
Oh, God, no.
Yes, he could.
Well, with a nuke.
Yeah.
But with a nuke, then...
No, hold on. Your argument is Israel is not genocidal because they haven't killed everyone in Gaza and they could. I'm saying Vladimir Putin could kill everyone in Ukraine and he hasn't. Therefore, according to Joe Walsh's logic, Vladimir Putin is not genocidal.
A different situation in this degree. Israel is capable. From day one, they were capable.
As is Putin.
Well, only with nukes. Israel is fighting another sovereign nation with a full-on military, with the support of the world community. Ukraine.
Okay.
Right,
you meant Russia, you said Israel.
Oh, I'm sorry. So Russia literally has an opposing army. Supported that.
But it could wipe it out. And by the way, the definition of genocide is not to kill everyone in a place.
Mehdi,
you know this, right?
I do.
They don't have to kill everyone to be genocidal.
Oh, I know that. But Mehdi...
But what they've done meets many of the criteria of genocide, which is why they're in front of the ICJ, which is why some of the leading genocide scholars in the world are saying it's a genocide.
No.
Omar Bartov, Israeli Holocaust historian. Amos Goldberg, Israeli Holocaust historian. Daniel Blatvik, Israeli Holocaust. They all say it's genocide. Are they crazy? These people study this for a living, Joe.
But do you...
Not you and me.
No, I know that, and I respect those opinions, but I don't think that's the majority view. But secondly, going back to Russia...
Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, all say genocide.
Well, again...
Human rights groups... Israeli Holocaust historian, Joe Walsh. With respect. What do you know that they don't know?
With respect.
With respect.
I'm sure it's more than Joe Walsh. But again, just to get back to Russia on this point, Mehdi, so Russia would be forced to use a nuke because Russia is fighting literally an army.
But they could, is what I'm saying. People were worried about Putin using nukes.
But a nuke then would mean the destruction of Russia. That's a whole different equation. Israel doesn't have to use a nuke, and they didn't from day one, to get rid of the Palestinian people.
But they have made life uninhabitable. It's not hypothetical. Right now, as of right now, Gaza is uninhabitable. Donald Trump says so, the President of the United States. In fact, let me show you. I think we've got some footage. I'd love to get your response to this footage, because Gaza, over the last 16 months, have a look at the screen, has suffered an apocalyptic level of destruction. This is a recent drone video from January. 70% of the buildings destroyed. Look at that imagery. That is not an anti-terror operation. That is not just targeting Hamas. That is, look at the imagery. That is something out of, I don't even know is that a Mad Max movie? It's entirety destruction. If that's not genocidal, I don't know what is. I haven't seen scenes like that in Ukraine, maybe in one town, Mariupol, but I haven't seen the entire Gaza Strip.
Mehdi, by every measurement of urban warfare, Israel has gone...
Please don't give me a talking point, Joe.
No, I'm not. I'm looking at that.
Respond to the footage.
I'm responding to the footage.
You don't give a damn about that.
No, I do. Don't say that.
Well,
I do give a damn.
Engage with it.
I do
Please
give
don't
a
give me
damn.
some talking about urban warfare stats.
No, it is.
I know the stats. I can give you stats. I'm asking you to respond to that footage.
Agreed. And
entire cities and towns wiped
Gaza
out.
needs to be rebuilt.
That's
no
not
doubt.
engaging with the footage.
No, it is.
What is your human reaction to seeing entire towns, cities, refugee camps wiped out?
My reaction is that really sucks. That's horrible. That needs to be rebuilt. But I'm not going to lay the lion's share of the blame on Israel.
The people who wiped that out. The people who chose to drop 2,000-pound bombs on civilian homes, apartments, buildings.
I'm going to lay the lion's share of the blame on Hamas for starting the war on October 7th, knowing exactly what would happen, hiding for years behind their civilians, putting their civilians in harm's way. I'm not going to blame the army.
It's a very strange argument that says they started a war knowing that would happen. So So hold on. So if I start a fight with a known gangster or murderer, and he kills a bunch of my family in response, it's my fault?
Oh.
No, seriously, the law, it's a very strange argument. You're basically conceding that Israel was going to respond in a genocidal way. That's what you're saying. You're saying Hamas started knowing Israel would do that. That doesn't make it morally right what Israel did.
I'm not conceding that's a genocidal way.
What is that? What is that imagery in your eyes? I'm trying to understand. What is that imagery?
That is a horrible result.
That is something we've not seen in modern wars. I mean, what they've done in Gaza, other military commanders, you know this, Joe, including the US, have said, we would never do this.
But Mehdi,
the UK, the US.
Gaza is a very unusual setting for a war like this.
Yes,
I'll give you this. But we're talking
children.
We're talking about Hamas that has a history of purposely provoking Israel, then
That's
hiding
your claim.
behind.
They would say they're provoked by Israel by an unending occupation. But I want to ask you this question about civilians. I do want to ask you a question.
I love being with you.
No, but I want to ask you because I want to deal with actual substantive stuff.
But that is substantive
No, it's
stuff.
not. That's opinion. I want to deal with fact.
Oh my God.
It is opinion about who provoked who. We can get into that. I will come to that, I promise. But just dealing with this, I just want to deal with human. Because the reason I want to talk to you about the subject is because at home in the US, I see you caring about human rights, civil liberties, democracy, fascism. And then I see Israel, you're on the wrong side completely. So when I look at, for example, that destruction, I don't think you would defend that if it wasn't Israel that was doing it. Similarly, 6-year-old Hind Rajab, you always say Hamas, Hamas, Hamas. This is the great excuse for Israel committing war crimes. You have a 6-year-old girl, Hind Rajab, infamously killed in a car with her 4 cousins, her uncle and aunt, all killed by an Israeli tank that was firing at them. She makes a 911 call. Very, very tragic, horrific call. They send 2 paramedics, the Palestinians, to rescue her. The Israelis killed the paramedics as well in the ambulance. Sky News, the Washington Post have all debunked the Israeli denials that their tank wasn't in the area at the time. The UK independent investigators, Forensic Architecture, they looked at it and said that the Israelis fired 335 bullets into this car and that the tank driver had to have seen that there were children sitting in this car. How do you defend that, Joe?
I don't.
You do. I've got a quote from you that says, Israel deserves immense praise for winning this war as carefully as they can. Would you say that to the remaining family members of Hind?
No, let me finish.
Would you say that to their faces of Hind Rajab's family?
Oh, God, no. Mehdi, look, I defend the way Israel... Let me finish.
In abstract, which is why I give specific.
No, I
know how people do this. Abstract.
No.
Specific.
So let me address both.
Yeah.
I agree. Broadly speaking, I defend the way Israel has fought this war, acknowledging that, and let me finish this thought, that mistakes are made in every war, and that there are purposeful, indefensible acts made even by the IDF and any military. And that's an example of one. And this is...
So you're agreeing then that in this war that you support, Israel has committed war crimes?
I agree. Purposeful... Yes, mistakes have been made.
No, not mistakes.
I'm not going to...
Mistake is, I shot that person, I didn't mean to shoot that person. A war crime is, I deliberately killed a civilian, which you seemed to concede for a moment and then you pulled back.
No, hold on. I don't know that I'm going to call it a war crime.
Why?
I'm going to say, I don't know.
What's killing a child with 335 bullets isn't a war crime?
Give me the formal definition of war.
A violation of international humanitarian law, deliberately targeting civilians. What every human rights group... I mean, I could start reading to you from... I could read to you from the International Criminal Court Chief Prosecutor's indictment.
Yes.
We know because he's literally charged the Prime Minister you support with war crimes. And crimes against humanity.
I don't support that
Prime
Minister.
You've praised Netanyahu.
I also called for him to resign.
I know, but you've also praised him. You've also praised him.
Right. But let me get that on the record.
So I'm factually accurate
2 weeks after October 7th, I said he needs to go.
And then in the 18 months since, you've praised a man who was indicted.
I've also been critical of him as well.
Indicted for war crimes.
I could care less about what the IJC said about war crimes.
You sound like a Republican of old now.
No,
you do. Republicans, this is what I'm saying. At home, you're like rule of law, judiciary, courts. Abroad, screw the ICJ and the ICC. Do you see how you switch from home and abroad? At home, you're Joe Walsh, the Democrat.
Still the same.
Abroad, you're Joe Walsh, supporter of fascism, anti-international law.
But you know what's great about this whole thing is it's all focused on Israel. You haven't, for a second, talked about what is...
But why would I? You're not a supporter of the Palestinians or Hamas. When I talk to people who support that, I ask them about that. You are a supporter of the Israeli government, so I'm going to ask you about Israel.
And
you can do whataboutism all you want. Again, that's what MAGA people do here. When you ask them about MAGA, what do? They blame the Democrats. So let's not play that game. Let's ask you about Israel.
Mehdi, it's not the MAGA game. I'm going to say yes, Israel's made mistakes. I'm going to say yes.
War crimes.
Israel,
no, I'm asking war crimes.
Israel, call it what you want. Israel.
No, I'm asking you to call it.
And I'm going to tell you. I don't know. I'm going to tell you.
No, Joe.
No,
I'm not going to let you run away with it. You can shout all you want. 335 bullets fired into a car with children. Is that a war crime?
I don't. You know what? Could be. Investigate it. But God damn it.
It was investigated, Joe.
This is what Hamas does all the time.
Right. Joe,
hiding behind civilians is a war crime. You know what slays me about you?
By the way, you said, I see you say this all the time.
What?
Hiding behind civilians. And yet when Israelis actually use Palestinians as human shields, you don't say anything. Last week, it emerged, I checked your Twitter, Joe, you can correct me.
What?
Last week it emerged that an 80-year-old man, Israeli press reported, was being used as a human shield. They were taking him into houses, putting him in front of them, an actual human shield, right? They were using a Palestinian man.
but maybe,
they've done that many times. Do you know they've sent...
They've done that
let me
many
finish the
times.
sentence. They sent Palestinians into tunnels in Gaza. Have you condemned that as...
Mehdi,
have you condemned that as the use of human shields?
Was not aware of it, and if I was aware of it, I'd condemn it.
Why aren't you aware? It's all over the Israeli press.
Why are you not acknowledging that this is Hamas's policy, and this has been their policy from day one?
What I acknowledge
and
about
this
Hamas is irrelevant because I don't support Hamas.
Let me hear you say it.
I don't support Hamas. Do you support Hamas?
Do
you support Hamas?
No.
Do you support Hamas?
No.
I don't support Hamas. So that's done. Do I support Israel?
Stop for a minute.
Can
It's
I finish
not
a sentence?
done. No.
Can I finish a
No,
sentence?
not when you don't let me finish sentences.
Joe, let me finish mine. But I
Bullshit,
promise I'll let
Mehdi.
you give a long answer. I'll give you a long answer if you let me finish this one sentence. I don't support Hamas. Do you support Hamas?
No.
I don't support Israel. Do you support Israel?
Yes.
So well, that's what we're going to talk about. Now, when
Stop. No.
It's very simple. You're here to support Israel.
No, but stop. But Hamas...
Why am I talking about someone we both disagree with?
Hamas has been the governing entity in Gaza for how many years? So, yes, you do need to talk about Hamas because Hamas did what they did on October 7th.
And we've condemned it. Do we both condemn that?
history. Do you condemn? Yes. Do you condemn?
But you're not condemning Israeli war crimes. That's what I don't understand. You're trying to dodge it with whataboutism about Hamas. It's a very simple question. I can keep going. Let's play a clip here. Let's play a clip for you to watch. We got a clip of a grandmother. Here's a grandmother. Maybe you're not aware of this. This is a Palestinian grandmother in her 50s. She's holding a child, right, in her arm. He's got a white flag. She's shot in cold blood by an Israeli sniper who's...
Mehdi, I don't know what the hell that was. That's not... How do I know?
It's a sniper who shot at a Palestinian grandmother.
Mehdi, you invite me on, you show me a clip of that, and you tell me what it is. I'm sorry, okay, I'm not familiar with that. Okay? I'd like to know what that is. I'm not familiar with that.
You know I can go through multiple examples, right? You know that. I can start reading multiple examples. The Al-Dos family in Gaza, whose apartment building was bombed. We can go through each and every example.
But where you and I will disagree is this. And I'm telling you, this is ugly, and it's horrible, and it's unfortunate.
It's war crimes.
It's not Israel's policy to target civilians. Israel has gone out of their way not to. They are fighting an opposition, Mehdi, that has a history of doing the exact opposite.
All right, buckle up. Because this exchange wasn't just a spicy TV spat, it was a masterclass in how intent gets weaponized to excuse outcomes you would never defend anywhere else. Here's the core contradiction Mehdi Hasan put in front of Joe Walsh. If you can call what Russia is doing in Ukraine genocide based on intent and deeds, why is the word suddenly off limits for Gaza, where the civilian death toll, the scale of destruction, and the displacement are, by many metrics, even worse? You don't have to like the label to see why so many jurists and genocide scholars say it's at least plausible, and that isn't just Twitter heat. In January 2024, the International Court of Justice, ICJ, ordered Israel to prevent acts under the Genocide Convention and to enable life-saving aid, explicitly finding a plausible risk of genocide while the case proceeds. That wasn't a final ruling on genocide, but it was the court saying this risk is real enough to trigger emergency measures. And look at the physical reality on the ground. UN satellite analysts say more than 3/4 of all structures in Gaza were damaged or destroyed as of August 2025. Entire neighborhoods are flattened. That's not a targeted counter-terror raid. It's wide-scale urban devastation. The UN and World Bank have used phrases like becoming uninhabitable. And it's not hyperbole. Basic services, water, sanitation, healthcare, housing, gone. Walsh's fallback is intent. He argues Israel's intent isn't genocidal, therefore the outcome can't be. Two problems. First, international law doesn't require that everyone be killed to meet genocide thresholds. It looks at acts with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, and at patterns, not press releases. That's why the ICJ's provisional order matters. It says the risk of those acts being carried out is plausible right now. Second, intent is evidenced not only by deeds, but by words of senior officials. We're not talking stray backbenchers. Israel's Heritage Minister Amichai Eliyahu said in November 2023 that dropping a nuclear bomb on Gaza was one of the possibilities. So extreme he was suspended from cabinet meetings after public outrage. And senior ministers Smotrich and Ben-Gvir have repeatedly advocated voluntary migration from Gaza and resettlement, language that, in practice, amounts to demographic engineering under force of war. You don't need a law degree to see how that reads next to mass displacement. When Mehdi pressed Walsh on specific killings, the intent argument collapsed into euphemism. Take Hind Rajab, the 6-year-old who begged for help by phone as relatives lay dead around her. Independent investigations by Reuters, AP, and Forensic Architecture mapped the incident. The car was riddled with hundreds of bullets. Paramedics sent to rescue Hind were also killed. Israeli denials about a tank's presence in the area were contradicted by open source and forensic analysis. If you still insist there's nothing to condemn there, you're not defending law, you're defending impunity. And those isolated mistakes? Patterns matter. Journalistic and rights investigations have documented double-tap strikes, secondary strikes on rescuers, shootings around aid queues, and repeated attacks on humanitarian workers. This isn't about one rogue platoon. 972 magazine found the double-tap method was used repeatedly. AP interviewed soldiers and contractors who described fire on crowds at aid distribution points, and the World Central Kitchen convoy strike, meticulously investigated by multiple outlets, showed what happens when explosive force is used in populated areas with threadbare rules of engagement. To be clear, none of this sanitizes Hamas's atrocities. The ICC prosecutor has sought arrest warrants for Hamas leaders and for Israel's prime minister and defense minister, parallel tracks that reflect the basic rule of law idea Mehdi was arguing for. The law applies to everyone, or it applies to no one. If you wanted a perfect both things can be true sentence, Hamas commits grave crimes, and Israel's campaign includes acts that may be crimes under international law. That's it. Walsh tried the familiar pivot. But Hamas hides behind civilians. Two realities can coexist. Storm 1, Hamas commits war crimes by embedding among civilians and firing indiscriminately. And 2, that doesn't legalize indiscriminate or disproportionate force in response. The prohibition is absolute. You can't bomb an apartment block because a fighter was seen on the roof if the predictable civilian cost far outweighs the concrete military advantage. When Walsh says, essentially, Hamas started it, they knew what would happen, he's not refuting Mehdi, he's conceding that Israel's predictable conduct would be so destructive that starting a war guarantees mass civilian death. That is not a defense, that is an indictment of the response. On human shields, it's true the Israeli Supreme Court banned the practice years ago, and it's a war crime when anyone does it. But reality is messy. Recent reporting shows Israeli forces themselves have used civilians as shields and even sent Palestinians ahead of troops, which Haaretz and AP have documented. You can, and should, condemn both Hamas's and the IDF's violations without getting trapped in team jerseys. Consistency isn't weakness, it's credibility. And please miss me with the if they wanted genocide, it would be over by now line. By that logic, Putin isn't genocidal either, because he hasn't dropped a nuke on Kyiv. The legal test isn't, did they exterminate everyone? It's whether acts were carried out with intent to destroy a protected group in whole or in part. That's why the ICJ stepped in, and it's why respected Israeli genocide and Holocaust scholars have warned that the pattern of speech and action meets or approaches the threshold. You don't have to agree with them to admit their case isn't frivolous. Meanwhile, inside Israel's own security establishment, the strategy is being condemned. A group representing hundreds of former senior security officials, commanders for Israel's security, publicly urged a policy shift, arguing the current path has no strategic payoff and corrodes Israel's security. You can wave away international NGOs. It's harder to wave away your own ex-Mossad, Shin Bet, and IDF brass saying this isn't working. For those asking, why is Ukraine different? Legally, it shouldn't be. In Ukraine, the ICC has already issued warrants for Putin over the unlawful deportation of children. OSCE fact-finding found deliberate strikes on civilians in Mariupol to be war crimes. If you believe in universal standards, then universal standards apply in Gaza, too. The methodical destruction of civilian infrastructure, the killing of aid workers and journalists, the mass orphaning, those demand real investigations and accountability, not PR lines about mistakes were made. Let's bottom line the debate Mehdi was trying to force. Words. Senior Israeli officials have used eliminationist rhetoric, nukes, as an option, voluntary migration, resettlement, which speaks to intent. That rhetoric is part of why the ICJ imposed emergency measures. Deeds. Independent bodies have mapped a level of destruction that has rendered Gaza largely unlivable, documented specific incidents like Hind Rajab's killing and attacks on rescuers, and shown patterns such as double-tap strikes and fire on aid queues. Those are facts to be explained or prosecuted, not waved away as collateral. Law. The ICC prosecutor has moved simultaneously against Hamas and Israeli leaders, underscoring that accountability doesn't pick sides. Either you respect courts at home and abroad, or you admit your commitment to the rule of law is conditional. And one more thing Walsh kept dodging, the human reaction. You don't need a PhD in international law to look at drone footage of a capital city-sized strip reduced to concrete dust and say, this is morally intolerable. You don't have to be anti-Israel to say the strategy has failed on its own terms, as Israel's own security veterans keep warning. You just have to be consistent. If you believe in liberal democracy, you believe in constraining power with law, protecting civilians, especially when it's inconvenient, and rejecting the idea that atrocities are fine if your side commits them. Call Hamas what it is, a terrorist organization responsible for heinous crimes, and hold Israel to the standards it claims for itself, a state bound by international law, not above it. That's Mehdi's entire point. It isn't anti-Israel, it's pro-principle. If debates like this matter to you, say so below. Keep it civil, keep it sourced. And if you want more coverage that applies the same standards no matter the flag, Tap like, subscribe, and we'll keep doing the work.